Welcome back to Think, the podcast with me, Dylan Schreibman. I am so happy that you are here. So glad you took the time of your busy schedule to join me for another conversation. Today's topic that we were thinking about, 8 things that I learned in my 20s. Let's get into it. This is episode 7. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit with me for a moment and join another conversation. I feel like this episode topic is perfect because over the past few months, I have really been doing a lot of reflecting on the lessons I have learned in my life. I am 28. I am a year and a half, if I do the math, away from 30, and I've kind of been going back and thinking about what I've learned. And I thought I would share them with you, especially for viewers and people who are in their younger 20s and figuring it all out. I really think this could help you. So I am excited to get into it. I have mentioned a few of these lessons that I've learned on my TikTok. So if you want to go ahead and follow or look at me there, I've already talked about this a little bit in this reflecting era, we'll call it. As I said before, a few of these I've mentioned on my TikTok already, the first two, but I did want to reiterate them and sit with you for a moment and talk about them here. Especially number one, I feel like out of all the lessons I'm going to share today, this is the lesson that has hit me the hardest over the past few months of reflection, and that is do not look for external validation. I feel like a lot of us in our younger 20s, especially for people pleasers, you will get this, look for validation outside of ourselves, and that really has a huge part of whether we're happy or not. A lot of us look for this validation from friendships, from dating, really just wanting people to like us and want to be around us and say good things about us. And there is some validation in that. And when it's going well in your life, when you have quality friends or a quality relationship, it's going well. But when you enter a healing period or you lose a person that's important in your life in a friendship, it really hits you. And I feel like I spent most of my 20s, I would say up to a few months ago, if I'm being honest, looking for external validation in others. And that really played a major part of my happiness. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I have learned is we need to look within ourselves and we need to provide that validation from with ourselves because nobody in this world is going to validate you more than you can validate yourself. And that is the biggest lesson I have learned in my 20s. The biggest lesson I'm reflecting on right now as I look back over, especially my time in Los Angeles, it was always, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I think it first started because of friendships and chasing certain people to be friends and really wanting them to like me and fit into the aesthetic of the city and make connections with I thought were the right people to get me in the right circles and enjoy my time in Los Angeles. And so the biggest lesson out of that I learned is I wasn't authentically myself. And I changed around others because I just wanted them. I'm like, okay, if I act this way, they will like me. But if I really fully be myself, they may not like me. Am I good enough to fit in this circle? And I feel like a lot of my life I've been looking for that to fit in. I think dating is really probably even a bigger reflection for me than friends. Dating over the past few years has been laugh out of pain. No, has been difficult. And I feel like I've talked about this before on this podcast, and I've spent a lot of my time in therapy talking about this. I've had a lot of us look for external validation in dating with the people that we were attracted to. I struggled for a long time with seeking validation from men and getting men to like me just would make me feel good about myself. And if they didn't, it would make me feel bad about myself and make me feel like I wasn't good enough. And the biggest lesson I have learned with seeking external validation is A, it will leave you empty when those people leave. B, it will never fully make you happy because you will always be chasing it in some way. And C, you will slowly start to lose yourself and not remember who you are. And that has led me to the point of I need to get that validation within myself. I need to rewire my thinking to take away seeking so much validation from others to putting that validation and energy within loving myself and loving the things that I want to do and being authentically me. And the thing I have learned is when you are authentically yourself, the people that you are supposed to attract and that are supposed to be in your life will come into your life. And doors will open because you're not afraid to be yourself. And people see you for who you really are. I think when we're seeking external validation, there's always a wall up, a barrier, and that wall or barrier prevents us from being vulnerable, which prevents people from getting to know the true you and also prevents people from building deeper relationships with you because you're keeping them at a distance. You're keeping them at arm's length because you're scared, which creates a surface level relationship, and that person really can't truly get to know you. So how are they supposed to be your friend or your partner in life when they really don't even know you? I think another big important lesson I have learned is seek God. That is also, besides yourself, the only validation you need. The more you seek God, the more comfortable you will be, the more calm you will be, the less anxious you will be, and you will also know that you are enough. And God will always love you no matter what. So I think that really is a lesson I'm learning in this season that that's what I want to seek. And that's the intimate relationship that I want to have. And that allows all the other relationships to fall into place because God will put that right partner and those right friends in your life when you need them. God is always on time. His timing is always perfect. I've always been a spiritual person and I've always had a relationship with God and put that first. But I feel like in this season, I'm really learning to, that's the relationship that I want to seek. And that relationship is the most important relationship to me and the relationship that makes me feel the calmest and the most at peace and makes my life so much easier. It centers me and it grounds me. And I think that was one of the biggest factors of not needing external validation anymore and putting that validation back into myself because of my relationship with God. I think that was the thing that changed it and took away that need for external validation. Some people are only in your life for a season. That brings me to number two, be okay with people leaving. I've also mentioned this one on my TikTok, but I wanted to bring it up here. I think when we're in our younger 20s, we don't understand why some people leave. We really want to be friends with those people and seek friendships or relationships with those people, and then they leave, and we are left with just utter confusion and not knowing why. Sometimes friendships will end in your life, and when you're in your younger 20s, you just don't understand why. It just creates a world of chaos, a world of confusion, a world of anxiety where you think, am I good enough? Was it me? Am I not good enough? Did I do anything wrong to impact this friendship or relationship ending? And then as I got into my older 20s, I realized those friendships ending were a blessing because some people are only meant for certain chapters to teach you lessons. You never realize those lessons as you're going through it and you're going through losing that person in your life because there is a mourning period and there is a healing period to it, which you should absolutely explore and feel the emotions of it. And then after that, you will realize that person taught me this lesson, whatever it may be. It could be that person taught me never to change for anybody. I was never myself in that situation, so that prevented that person from really getting to know me. And my walls may have been up to keep it surface level, or I don't need to change in future friendships. I am just going to be authentically myself and learn that if that person exits, they're not meant to be in my life. Or if they don't like me for some odd reason, it's okay. I have people who like me and I have people who want to be in my life. Always be authentically who you are, and the right people will stay. That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned is in certain friendships before I was not authentically myself. And like I said before, I changed for those people, and that created that lack of intimacy in that friendship of really getting to know each other. But I was able to take that lesson into future friendships that I made and friendships that I had at the time and really was myself. And those people either stuck around or I made new friendships and met new people. And I was like, I'm going to be myself. If these people like me, they like me. If not, I know they're not meant to be in my life. I think that is something you really learn as you get older of it's okay for people to leave. And it's not always a bad thing. People are meant to come into your life to teach you a lesson and you will find out that lesson. Some people will stay forever. I don't want to make it seem like everyone's going to leave in your life because that's not true. People love you for who you are. People see you for who you are. People think of you for who you are. People think about you and become happy, or when they get to hang out with you, say you made future plans, they get excited because they get to see you. You are a light for people that are supposed to be in your life. And those people will see that. It has nothing to do with you if people leave. This is where you can also trust God. God will, they always say the prayer that works the fastest is when you ask God to remove people from your life that shouldn't be in your life. He will do that quickly. And you learn to trust God to keep the right people in your life. And if the people leave, you will learn a lesson later, or He is protecting you from things that you do not see. And better relationships and friendships will come along. And the people that are meant to be in your life will stay. Leave your relationships to God. That's what I say, and He will bring the right people. It has nothing to do with you. Which brings me to number three. We're trucking along here. Number three, I think this is another lesson that I took a while to learn. And as a people pleaser, I feel like that's a common theme of this podcast. I want to say former people pleaser because we're not doing that in 2025. It will be relatable to a lot of people if you are a people pleaser or trying to change your habits about that, is do not take things personally. I think as a people pleaser, it's easy to. It's easy to take someone's comment or action as something that you did or really allow it to impact you. The biggest lesson you will learn is it has nothing to do with you most of the time. It's most likely projection. Something's going on in their life and they're just taking it out on you, which means that equals it has nothing to do with you. It could be, say, you're in a work situation and your boss makes a comment that you really aren't, that really impacts you. It probably has nothing to do with you. It has to do with maybe their boss said something to them, or they're under a tight deadline for something else, or they're stressed and they just needed somebody to take it out on. And unfortunately, that was you. That doesn't justify their actions. I do want to point that out and make that very clear. But the faster you can learn to not take things personally, the better. It makes your life so much easier when you're not worrying about what other people did and realizing that this has nothing to do with me. I'm not going to let this impact me because most likely they're not even thinking about that comment that they made to you or that action that they did to you. I think actions potentially could be a little different because some people will do things to you that they should apologize to you for and owe you an apology for. Even comments, I think they should owe you an apology, but sometimes that apology unfortunately will not come. And you just have to realize that I'm not taking this personally. I'm letting this go. As Jinx Monsoon on Drag Race once say, water off a duck's back. Once you learn that in relation to other people, life becomes so much easier. And it's okay as you're transitioning into not taking things personally to maybe someone makes a comment to you. It's okay to sit with it for a while or let it impact with you for a while and then move on. And but it's okay to sit with it. It's don't blame yourself if it impacts you for a little bit and then later on you're like, "Oh, I'm not going to take that personally and move on." That's okay too. That is definitely okay. The next lesson, number four, I'm actually kind of curious to see how people react to, and that's date a lot. And I know I just went on a tangent earlier about do not seek external validation during dating, and that still exists. I think you can date a lot without seeking that. You can go into dates for yourself and not seek that external validation or have those expectations. You can kind of go in for yourself and try to find a partner. And I think just because we shouldn't seek external validation, we still seek human companion. And I think once you can switch your mindset to or learn to, it's okay if it doesn't work out, that one wasn't meant to be, that's okay. The reason I say date a lot is you will find out what you like and what you don't like when it comes to relationships. You will find out what you're okay with and people treating you. You will find out what you don't like when it comes to people treating you. It also will give you so many experiences. I've had so many fun experiences through dating that didn't work out in the end, but I still had a fun time and I still was able to go out for a night and maybe try a new restaurant or go to a new bar or go to the beach. You know, it still gives you life experience that you can look back and enjoy. It will teach you your love language and what you really value. So whether my love language is physical touch. So I've learned that through dating experience because when I first started dating, I thought my love language was words of affirmation and quality time. But as I've gone through more dating experience, it's switched. Physical touch is definitely the top of my love language. Quality time is probably slipped down to second if we're ranking it. I think it's still important to spend time with that person to see if you like them. And there's nothing else to me like enjoying each other's company. So you want to be around each other. I still need my me time. And I think that's why it's maybe slipped to number two. I still need that alone time. I'm a person I love to be alone and I love to recharge. Words of affirmation probably was my top love language and has slipped to number three as I've dated more. Just because I think I used it more as validation of if this person gives me a compliment or says something really nice about me, I know they like me. And I think I was making it really important in my life for the wrong reasons. I think it still can be someone's top love language and really important to people. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I still like words of affirmation and it's still very important to me. I think I've learned to take a compliment better. I think it's funny because it used to be my top love language, but I was on a date once and I distinctly remember the man gave me a compliment and I guess I didn't react to it well. And he kind of told me that. He was like, "You do not." I think he gave me a few compliments during the date. We were at a bar, and I guess since I was like seeking validation so desperately, or not really sure why, but I didn't take them well. And he kind of pointed that out to me. He was like, "You don't take compliments well, do you?" And it kind of checked me, and I was like, "Oh, Dylan, yeah, you're really not." And I think it's easy for people to, if they compliment you, to be like, "Thank you," but when we should just take the compliment. I think love languages work like that, though. Like, they say like you always have the opposite factor of it too. So like words of affirmation, you don't take compliments well, or if you value quality time, sometimes you just like to be alone. Or number four for me is acts of service. I think I should do a podcast on love languages one day because I'm most of them I say are really important to me. I think four of them are really important to me. Physical touch is definitely first, but the others are still important and I want them. Because acts of service shows people really care. That might honestly tie for third for me or be third. I actually now thinking, I think that might be third over words of affirmation. Maybe I'm thinking maybe if it even ties quality time. I think acts of service is the opposite of words of affirmation for me. I think it used to not be as important to me. And as I've dated more and had more experience, I think it's gone up the charts. Just because I'm a really big person on people noticing the small things, whether that be getting a coffee for you because they know your coffee order or something small like that. They notice you're having a bad day, so they do something nice for you, or they notice you're nervous in a moment, so like put their hand over your hand. I think that's really sweet to kind of calm you down and say like, I'm here for you. Is that acts of service? I don't really know if that's acts of service. That's still nice. I still appreciate it if you're listening and you're my future husband. Uh, and I think the last for me is would be gifts. I'm not really a big person on gifts. It's not really that important to me, to be honest. I'm more of an experienced person, which I guess is technically a gift, but I'm not really a person that like if we get in a fight or something, you come home with a Birkin bag and I'll be like, oh my God, I love you so much. Like it'll be nice. I would appreciate it and be grateful, but that's not like how I want to resolve an argument. Anyway, back to the lesson of dating a lot. I love love languages, and that's why I went on a tangent because it's like one of my favorite things. But dating a lot will teach you what love languages you like, and they may switch over time. They may start like I did and become more important or less important. It'll allow you to learn to communicate with others as well, how important communication is to you and what communication you're looking for. Good communication is important, and learning your communication style and that communication style being compatible with your partner is important. That's something you will learn what you like as you date and as you talk to people. It will also teach you to flirt. It will teach you to have fun. And I think you can also learn to set boundaries in dating, and that's really important. I think for a long time I struggled to set boundaries in dating, and that was because of being a people pleaser. And I feel like sometimes when you set boundaries, you feel like that person won't like you or won't respect you anymore or won't want to see you anymore and will end whatever, you know, is going on between the two of you. But it will also teach you that setting boundaries with the right person, they will respect that. Which takes me to my number five lesson. Learn to set boundaries and that no is an answer. I think for the longest time, this podcast is really, this topic is really one for people pleasers, isn't it? As a person that's been a people pleaser for a long time, a lot of my lessons revolve around that. I think for people pleasers, setting boundaries is one of the most difficult things to do. You think people aren't going to like you. You think people are going to leave you. You think people are going to maybe make fun of you for a boundary you set. The fear of abandonment is real. And so sometimes you'll fold on certain boundaries that you want to uphold because you just want that person to be around you, whether that's a friend or dating. You say to yourself, and I think I did this a lot in my younger 20s, you say to yourself, maybe if I just loosen up that boundary a little bit, they'll stay. Or maybe that boundary isn't as important to me as I thought it was. So I'll just let it slide. No, that is not the right thing to do. The right people will stay and respect your boundaries. If they don't respect your boundaries, they're not meant to be in your life. And if they leave because of your boundaries that were set, let them go. Let them go. The right people, friends, partners will stay and respect your boundaries. I think it's also a very important lesson I've learned in my 20s, probably up there with the external validation. It's okay to say no. It is okay to set a boundary. If you do not feel comfortable with something, you can say no, especially when it comes to how people treat you. I think that's very important, or what you're comfortable with. If people get mad, it is on them. It is not on you. Once you learn to put yourself first, it is an absolute game changer. And once you free yourself from the idea of letting boundaries slide because you think somebody's going to leave, it allows you to be so free. Once you realize if that person leaves because you set a boundary, but that's okay, like I'll let it go, that's also a game changer. Number six is you will make mistakes. It seems simple, but you will make mistakes. That is a natural part of life, and that is okay. The reason I put this in here is I wanted to say don't be hard on yourself when this happens. You're not always going to make the right decision in life, and that is okay. You are going to make decisions that you regret in life, and that is okay. At the time, you made that decision with what you knew, so you have to forgive yourself. It's also the way you learn. Life would be so boring if we couldn't learn. You could say, this is when I go back to my faith, you could say, there is no wrong decision. It's just a learning experience. And of course, if you were to go back with the information that you knew now, you would probably make the other decision, and that's okay. But as I said, you were making the decision with what you knew at the time. And some decisions can even be reversed. And for example, if you move to a place and you really don't like it, you can change that. If you allow someone to come into your life and realize that they aren't meant to be in your life or you don't like the way they're treating you, you can change that. It's all a learning experience. Don't be so hard on yourself. And that is again one of the top lessons I've learned in my life. And that's the lesson I'm probably still working on. Do not be so hard on yourself if you make a decision that looking back, you regret. I, from life experience, it will not be the first or last decision that you make and you look back and wish you made the other choice, or that becomes a regret. Forgive yourself for knowing what you knew at the time and making that decision. Learn to let go. We all hold on to so much from our past or think about what's in the future. We never live in the present. Holding on to that decision or why did I make that decision is doing nothing but adding stress to your life. And it will take some time to process. There will be some things that happen in your life that you will have to go through a process and healing period. It's not, I know it's not easy to be like, oh, snap, I let it go. No, it takes time. It takes time. And during that process, be gentle on yourself, be easy on yourself, go through the emotions, sit with it, and you'll get to the other side. You are not perfect. Nobody is perfect. So we're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. I guarantee from this point in the podcast or this point in life, you will probably make another mistake, or you will make, you will have another decision that you are in between that Maybe you'll look back and be like, oh, I should have gone the other way or I should have done this. It happens. You learn you learn from it and we just try to be our better selves in the future. That's all we can do. Transitioning into number seven, life is supposed to be fun. I think we go through so much stress on the daily with our careers, with our love life, with our friendships, finances, etc., that we forget we're supposed to enjoy life. It's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to go out, you're supposed to have fun during experiences. As I said, I think we live so much in the past and what we did and the future and what we need to get done or our goals that sometimes we just forget to live in the present and be grateful for the moment, be grateful that we get to try to be our best selves from that point forward. We forget we're supposed to enjoy life and have fun with the people that we love the most, have fun with ourselves. I think in this season of my life of doing reflecting, I've learned to slow down and be more patient. And I think it's easy to get in such a rush of, I need to get this done, I need to get this done. I want to, I feel like I'm running out of time or I am still not where I want to be in life. I still want to do all of this. Maybe I want this relationship and I'm still single, or I want to hit this career goal that I haven't hit yet, or I'm not in the city that I want to be in. We forget to enjoy the process. I think that overthinkers can relate to and say, oh, yeah, I do that all the time because I still struggle with that sometimes. But I'm learning to slow down that I don't have to be in a rush all the time. I don't have to feel like I have to get all of this done or I'm rushing through my day. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to, I've never been a patient person. That's one of my, if you could say, weaknesses. I've always been impatient, but I think I'm learning to be more patient and in the moment. And I think that's another thing I can relate to my faith in God of slowing down and being patient and trusting God that the right things will come in the right moment. Your desires and your visions will come true. Maybe not on the timeline that you expected, but God always has his own timeline and will bring those things in at the right time. At the right time, he will make those things happen. So just try not to worry and know that it will come. Number eight, I've heard this a lot over the internet, so you've probably heard this one, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit. You are the CEO of your life. You should fire and hire accordingly with people, with relationships, with career. I think while still having God's trust. I heard something recently and it's kind of shocked my brain. It was one of those moments that, like, do you know the comments on the internet that like this rewired my brain? I had one of those moments recently where I saw something of, and I think it's become a trend now of this is your life and you're allowing others to make you unhappy. It's such a simple statement, but a powerful statement. And this can go back to external validation as well and loop that lesson in of this is our life. And this might, I probably should have said this during the first lesson, but I'm just thinking of it now. And we do a lot of the times allow others' actions and decisions and comments to make us so unhappy. Or we allow people that we don't know to make us unhappy because we compare ourselves. that's probably a lesson I should have added here. Do not compare yourself to others. That is the thief of joy. You'll never be happy comparing yourself to others. But now that I'm thinking of it, we give so many people that we do know or we possibly don't know so much power in our life. I'm learning to take that power back and not allow it to impact me so much. I think there's a battle of if I do that, like I don't want to become unempathetic and is that a word? I don't want to become not empathetic and not seem like I care for other people, but I think there's a line. You can still be empathetic and caring and kind, like I consider myself to be, and take your power back. I don't think the two have to be so black and white or one versus the other. Do not allow another person to be the CEO of your life. I think do things that make you happy. If you have to do them alone during a certain season of your life, do that. Do that could be another lesson. I could have gone on and on. I've learned so much in my 20s. Do things alone. Be comfortable with doing things alone. I think that's like the ultimate test of like, am I really happy? Am I fulfilled when you're able to do things alone and not seek that validation and be okay with going out and doing things alone. I think another thing I learned during my 20s, which applies to the you are the CEO of your life, if you are making a decision that is difficult or that you're really unsure of what to do, take a moment. I heard on a podcast once, I think it was Jay Shetty, but I don't exactly remember in the moment, where Michael B. Jordan was on, and he asked, I forget the exact question, but I think he asked him something about making a decision and if people are unsure of making that decision. I don't remember the question as much as the answer, but the answer was something along the lines of take a step back. Like if you don't know what to do in that moment, take a step back before you make that decision. Take a moment to think, to get yourself together. I think he said it way better than I did, but take that moment for yourself and really weigh the pros and cons. I think a lot of the times we can be rushed into a decision because we feel like we have to make it, especially smaller decisions of stuff. We just rush into it and maybe don't think as much as we do or as we should. If you're unsure, really take a moment. And I think if I look back in my 20s, most of the smaller decisions that I regretted or struggled to accept down the road are decisions that I rushed into. This could also apply to bigger decisions, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But instead of taking that moment to step back, take a deep breath, and not rush into it, I did the opposite of I rushed into it and then later on I had to deal with struggling to accept. Of course, we're going to make mistakes. And of course, we're going to learn lessons in life. That is natural and that's something that's going to happen. I think especially with bigger life-changing decisions of career or relationships or moving, really take your time while making those decisions and do not make an impulsive decision. I think a lot of the time you'll look back and realize that you've been thinking one way for a long time and you just finally have to act on it. But if you're just beginning that decision, really weigh out the pros and cons of making that decision of because an impulsive decision most likely is just going to lead to regret and lead to a lesson that you're going to learn later. Give yourself some time. with God, we don't have to rush. If we rush, we're just gonna mess it up. And sometimes I think we rush into things for instant gratification or instant validation, and that's understandable. I mean, I think that goes back to always being in a hurry and always, possibly being in a rush and not slowing down for a moment. But I think recently I've been learning that of, I think you're always where you're meant to be, but I think recently I've been learning to really take my time with decisions, especially life-changing decisions. I think when I was thinking of leaving LA, this could apply to taking my time while making a decision. When I decided to actually leave LA, I left within like a month, if even a month, which made everything so rushed and chaotic. I think because I had been thinking about it for a long time, when I actually acted on it, I impulsively said, okay, well, I've been thinking about this for over a year. Like, I'll move very quickly. Looking back, and I think we're always meant to be exactly where we're supposed to be in life. And again, I trust God and I trust my faith. But one of the lessons I've learned is looking back, maybe I shouldn't have left so soon. Maybe I should have given it more time for things to change because I don't think it was the city. I always say that, and I keep saying that, and I've said it before on this podcast. The city wasn't the thing that left me unfulfilled. I love the city, thinking about going back, but I think the one thing I possibly would have changed if I could was give more time for the things that actually were making me feel unfulfilled, give more time to see if I could change them instead of just rushing and being like, I have to leave everything behind. If I just maybe stuck it out for a few more months, maybe things would have changed. But again, I think everything happens for a reason. And I think I am where I'm supposed to be. So I had to learn to let that go. And that was one of the lessons I learned. There was also another reason, which I'll probably get into maybe a little bit later on in this podcast or an episode down the road. But I will say it was something that maybe I should have considered of waiting for things to change. But um, it's something that I've let go. And I know if I'm meant to move back there, it will happen. That's where really trusting my faith comes in and trusting that the right things happen at the right time come in. I think that's where trusting my faith really comes in and trusting God comes in of if I'm meant to move back there, I will. I think even when I left, I posted that if this is a forever goodbye, that's okay. If this is only a temporary goodbye, that's okay too. I'm learning, and one of my favorite therapists I ever had when I was in Los Angeles really was trying to get me to see to accept either outcome, accept that it's going to be okay either way. So I think with possibly moving back to Los Angeles, I'm trying to be okay either way because trusting my faith has led me to, if I do move back, which is something that can happen, that's great. And, I have wonderful friends there who I would love to see again. And I kind of know what to expect I mean, I would want to move back under different circumstances, obviously, but I know what to, I love the city and I know I would like living there under fulfilled circumstances. But if that's not in the cards for me and I don't move back, I know God will provide something better for me in a different city. So I think that is what I'm thinking of moving forward. I do want to wrap this up, but those are 8 lessons I have learned during my 20s. I could probably do a whole nother episode of 8 more lessons. I've learned so many things during my 20s. So let me know if you're interested in that. I'll do more lessons, kind of like reflecting and talking about what I've been through to help others. And maybe someone is going through something of that they need to hear, or maybe they're learning that lesson and can relate to me, or maybe it will help them with something that is going on in their life. So I really do like sharing the things that I've learned, and I'm sure I'll learn plenty more things as I move forward. I do want to remind you this is a safe space for my LGBT plus community and its allies. This is a really difficult time under the new administration and feeling like we're being attacked constantly, but this podcast is a safe space for you to come and have conversation, or if you just want to sit for a moment, that's okay too. And I will see you next time.